Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
I love pizza. I can't say I've always loved pizza. I remember when I really formed a love for pizza. Growing up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, Houghton, Michigan, we didn't have pizza often. They didn't. Pizza delivery really wasn't a thing. It was kind of a rural community, and we might have, it's a frozen pizza now and then. And I like pizza. It was good, but it was kind of at the whim of my mom and dad, and when we would have it. When I went off to college in Beloit, Wisconsin, pizza was that was my first real introduction to delivery pizza. You know, being at the fraternity house and having you just call somebody up and have somebody bring the pizza to you. But, still that was kind of a little bit of an effort and didn't have it often. There was always eating in the dorm or whatever the fraternity cook had made for the day is generally what you ate, and it was seldom ever pizza. But when I went off to law school at the Ohio State University, I lived very close to campus. The first place I rented was 50 East 12th Avenue, which it's just east of High Street, and High Street's like the main drag for the Ohio State University campus. You cross High Street, you're on campus. But up and down there's all sorts of pizza places. I mean, it's just all sorts of pizza places. And there was one in particular where it was called Oval Pizza, if I recall. $5, you got this big, massive pizza. And they would deliver it. I mean, bring it to my apartment. I'd give them $5 and be on my way. And it was a big pizza. It might take me 2 sittings to eat it. It was a really big pizza. And that was, for me, was a really big deal. It was kind of a Saturday, Sunday sort of a thing. And so I've always been partial to having pizza. Now, I know this is kind of a strange intro to a podcast about networking, but if you know me well enough, it all leads back to networking. It all leads back to relationships, if you will, professional relationships. But I stumbled across a 2017 study that was in the Journal of Consumer Psychology. And what they discovered was that when people eat the same foods, it helps promote trust and closeness between them. So you sit down and you both share a pizza. Or you go out to dinner and say, I'll have what they're having. I'll have what he's having, I'll have what she's having, I'll have what they're having. I'll keep it general. That tends to promote relationships on a very, probably on a subconscious level. And, it harkens back to a time when sharing a meal with somebody was kind of the equivalent of a handshake or a hug. It was a way of building rapport. And so what they did in these studies, and there were a series of studies, generally speaking, they don't do one study and say, okay, yeah, there's our answer. They'll try it lots and lots of different ways. And they did it in a negotiation setting, and they determined, through the study, they determined that people, on average, who were eating the same food reached an agreement twice as fast as people who were eating different foods. And in another study, they did a study where, testing people's willingness to give to a particular cause. So somebody's asking for something and let's just, in my case, sharing a pizza. Okay, we're both eating pizza. We're both raving about this pizza. I'm more likely to give more money in that situation. And they tested this in lots of different ways. They even using candy, it still worked. There's something about sharing a meal, sharing that experience that tends to bring people closer. So a great trick or hack for building relationships is to literally, I'll have what they're having. Let them order and I'll have what they're having. It sounds great. Now you may have to just, it might not always work out in your favor. I know people who don't like fish, for example. Somebody else has fish. You have to make that choice as to whether you're going to go with the fish or and suffer through it, or go with something else. And I'm not saying you have to eat what the other person eats all the time, but just to kind of know that it's there, that it's a powerful sort of thing that you can default to. And you might say, well, what about other things to build trust? And they looked at other things. And for example, they looked at people wearing a similar shirt. So you're going in and okay, the person you're going to be talking to and trying to solicit funds is going to be wearing a blue button-up shirt. Okay, you need to go in there wearing a blue button-up shirt. And they did those sorts of things, and it really didn't have an impact. And well, a lot of times I don't even think we notice that people are wearing the same shirts. I went into a chapter meeting of AmSpirit Business Connections a couple weeks ago, and everybody was wearing a blue shirt. I mean, not all navy blue, but all kind of a dark blue shirt. Every one of them. And nobody really noticed till I pointed it out, because I wasn't wearing a blue one. I'm like, hey, I didn't get the memo, guys. And they kind of looked around and laughed. But in the study, they tested variations of the study, and we know that having similarities with people helps us build relationship. They tested, something as subtle as, the color of a shirt or the type of shirt. And it didn't have the impact that sharing food can have. So just something to keep in mind as you're out there and you're talking with somebody. Maybe you're meeting with somebody and trying to close a deal or get an introduction or just build a little bit of relationship. You can do it. You can do it simply by, hey, I'll have what they're having, and see where that takes you. Good luck.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.